Now, there are two other events I want to cover. So you had this conversation with Chair Deans on the 14th. I want to ask you about the 13th as well as on the 15th. So let's start with the 13th. I'm skipping ahead. I jumped a few things because in the interest of time, we've heard from the other witnesses, including Chief Party and Superintendent Bernier, that Superintendent Bernier was working closely with the Integrated Planning Group as of the 12th, and by the 13th, they have signed off on a plan, and we've seen the plan. There's an email that was exchanged on or around the 13th that I'd like to take you to so as to clarify what your understanding was as to the evolving plan that you described. Can I take you to OPP 401547? So if we go to the very bottom of the chain, this email chain originated from you to Deputy Chief Ferguson. You asked her to please send you the latest version of the operations plan that you approved on Wednesday, February 9th. That was the day when you met with the Integrated Planning Group that we talked about. And then you also asked to please advise if the plan has received official approvals, signatures, etc., as there seems to be some concerns about this from the RCMP. If we go up one level, so Deputy Chief Ferguson replied to you saying, in checking with Rob Bernier, he finally had a chance to review the plan from the Integrated Planning team and has sent it back with his comments. He would prefer that it be completed and signed off, and will then share the plan as he is the final approver of it. As for version 3.0, Ottawa Truck Demo 22, 9th of February, I think she attached that as per your request. So we've heard from both Deputy Ferguson and from Superintendent Bernier. Superintendent Bernier was very clear that to him, the 3.0 and the February 13th plan were very different plans. So I just want to get your comment on that.
They were very different plan, a strong and increasingly stronger level of integration, and finally, demonstrably, a greater level of resources coming in. But it was that last area that I still felt that there were challenges in getting those resources. And it's in that particular aspect that played probably the biggest role in my decision to resign my office.
We've heard from other witnesses that after your resignation, things appear to move quicker. Do you have any idea why that might be the case?
We had a very strong integrated team. We had very strong leaders in that team. There was clarity around the plan. I suspect, yes, when there's a leadership change, there's always a sense of there's a change. And that change alone, as you've seen in decisions to replace a hockey coach mid-season or whatever, the team plays well for 3 or 4 games and the old challenges that hadn't been addressed yet come back pretty quickly after. So I don't in any way challenge the notion that a change created a change. But I do note that the level of resources flowing in was incredible at that point, and that within 3 or 4 days, there was sufficient resources on the ground to execute successfully the operations that have already been described in this court.
When you attended your interview with us, you told us that the primary reason for your resignation was consideration of public safety.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you meant.
Well, I think I started off my testimony here today.
And as she tells it, at that time, you told her that you would not resign. But then the next morning, you called her to say that you had reconsidered. Is that accurate from your perspective?
I told her that I had put my heart and soul into this organization, the mandate that she had given me, and that I'd be seeing this thing through. And that at 9:30 at night, it was a very inappropriate conversation to be having with me. I wasn't going to be giving it any more consideration.
And so what made you change your mind?
The almost 11 hours worth of continuing to manage the situation in this city on behalf of the Ottawa Police Services.
And did anyone within the City of Ottawa or the Government of Ontario or the Government of Canada express to you that you should resign?
I'm a little bit, I realize I'm not supposed to be referencing other people's testimony or evidence presented already, but I am aware of a very alarming text, apparently from Brenda Lucki, Commissioner Lucki to Commissioner Carrique. I wasn't aware of it before my decision, but I am now aware of it now. So I don't know how to relate that into this situation, so.
Well, it's more about, did anybody tell you, did anybody put pressure on you or suggest to you that you should resign, that at the time, obviously you would have been aware of that if somebody had said that to you?
Thank you. That's more helpful for me. I had direct experiences with officials at 3 levels of government. I had direct experiences with 3 levels of government over the course of the time that these events that left me with a clear sense that I had little to no support from elements at those 3 levels.
In all 3 levels?
Yes.
Are you aware of any political pressure on the board to seek your resignation?
Municipal, yes, definitely. There was a motion passed. Motion presented. I don't think it was passed. So clearly, yes. I don't remember if any of the board members, the 3 councillors that were on the board, voted in support of that motion to remove the Ottawa Police as police jurisdiction. But there was certainly, I'm aware, at the municipal level, significant pressure on the board for that to take place.
My understanding is that motion didn't make it to the floor. There was not a vote on that motion.
Still a clear indication.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to go back to the beginning, if I may, and just go through some of the events with you, kind of from the municipal/board lens, if you will. So I want to talk a little bit about pre-arrival intelligence, and you talked about that with my colleague, Mr. Au. And I want to just talk about what information was relayed to the board with respect to what could be expected before the convoy arrived. Now, Mr. Superintendent Abrams of the OPP confirmed in his evidence that on the 27th, there was an intersect call. And on that call, OPS confirmed that their planning was on the base level, right?
Nor would there have been time, quite frankly. I would have gone to a board meeting if directed to do so, but that would have probably not been the most optimal use of our time, given the circumstances that were unfolding.
Okay. Now, I want to speak about the injunction that you suggested to the city, or you had a call with the solicitor, David White, on January 30th about the possibility of seeking an injunction. Ultimately, we know that the city did seek an injunction and was successful, but by that time, it was quite further along in the events, and the injunction was not actually ever used as an enforcement tool. And we're trying to understand why that's the case. So you recall you had a call with Mr. White on January 30th about the possibility of the city seeking an injunction, right?
And again, just by way of context, my recollection, again, stand to be corrected, was that we had, within the Ottawa Police Service, we had discussed a range of options as mitigating factors, risk-reducing factors, and injunction was one of them. This was before the arrival of the trucks in the pre-planning phase. Once the events unfolded, as I've described earlier on the Saturday, there was an attempt to step that up, and I believe that is the call that you're referencing.
Yes, and so what exactly were you seeking from him?
We were seeking reorganization. There were more roads closed on the second weekend. There were more effective coordination around the interprovincial bridges. There was more assistance for the OPP on monitoring traffic along the King's highways. But I really still had a lot of concerns about that.
Right. The downtown core was never hardened, so to speak.
In the fullest sense, meaning that we blocked off all of the access off-ramps, which I saw as a private citizen, no. To that level of hardening did not exist in the 3 weekends that I was the chief of police for.
Okay. I want to turn to OPS 405665. And these are notes from a command briefing on February 1st. And I'll take you to page 3. And I think you testified today that by the 30th, you had recognized some elements of an occupation as opposed to a demonstration. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it says that first point, if more demonstrators are expected back this weekend, early request for resources is required. Decision on whether this is an occupation needs to be made by tomorrow. Use experienced resources, i.e. Rob Bernier and others, pull from sections. Why did there need to be a decision about how to kind of classify this kind of a demonstration, whether it was an occupation or not? What turned on that?
This is the first time I'm seeing the email. I don't know the context of the meeting. Seems to be Inspector Bryden would be within the Intelligence Directorate, so I don't know the nature of this.
Okay, fair enough. And if we can go to the bottom of page 2. And trying to find my reference. Yeah, just at the bottom. The third line from the bottom, PLTs have done an excellent job in preventing rioting and de-escalation, but overall position and change needs to happen, looking more like an occupation than a negotiated end. If we can just keep going. Too many photos of police with protesters' trucks. Chief would like this addressed. Now this.
Folks, if you want to be kept up to date on what's happening at the Emergency Act Inquiry, including my live tweets and some clips and highlights that occurring at the Emergency Act Inquiry, by heading over to revolutionnews.ca/Emergency Act Commission. That's revolutionnews.ca/Emergency Act Commission. And of course, folks, while you're there, please head over to donorbox.org/Emergency Act Commission. That's donorbox.org/Emergency Act Commission. And of course, folks, if you could chip in a buck or two, that will be greatly appreciated, as it will help me cover my travel expenses, including my expenses on food, as bringing you these stories doesn't come for free. Thank you so much.